PCE Patashala course on Japan, module number 17 with the theme Culture and Society in Tokugawa, Japan. When we say Tokugawa, Japan, by period it has to begin from 1602, that is the beginning of the 17th century and ending at 1868. That begins actually modern Japan with Meiji Restoration. When we say 1602, that was a period of consolidation of political authority by Tokugawa Ieyasu. He was the shogun, one of the most powerful, who succeeded in establishing national political authority by bringing in all the small and warring states in Japan. Completion of the unification of Japan was achieved thus by Tokugawa Ieyasu. With that also there was a restoration of peace and political stability. When we say restoration of peace and political stability, we have to mean that hostility between the small and the medium daimyos, who were the provincial chiefs who were spread throughout Japan, especially in the northernmost part of the present Honshu Island and southernmost island, that is Kyushu, some parts of Shikoku Island also. They were all brought together and finally had to express their loyalty to the national authority under Tokugawa Ieyasu. This period, with the marking of completion of unification of Japan, that is political, and restoration of peace and political stability, that actually gave rise to a lot of development within society in the field of culture, literature, art, painting, theatre, drama and even philosophy. So, now we have an opportunity in this module to introduce you to some such features. When we say philosophy of Tokugawa Japan, basically we mean Confucianism. Confucianism, as developed by monk or philosopher Confucian, originates from China. Basically, it is a social structure, social order in the sense of philosophy when we speak. When we say religion, I think some of the ethical fiber from the religious teachings also have been incorporated well into Confucianism. Thus, it is more to do with the society rather than to do per se with religion. Chu, his school of Confucianism, that is called Neo-Confucianism, was also developed by his successors, by other leaders who carried forward his philosophy. Taigi Meibun, for example, that is to do one's duty in accordance with one's own place in the society. In Japan, there is a very famous saying that individual must be shown his place. It is almost compared to a nail on the wall. However much the nail puts its head outside to come out independently, it has to be shown that it is the place where it should belong to by hitting hard on the head of the nail, meaning that individual transformation in terms of status can hardly be changed. That is, status is given at birth, that is male or female, whether which caste or class in society one belongs to. However, away from Confucian social philosophy, impact of Confucianism on Japanese consciousness, that is mindset or presence of mind, also was one of the features one can identify with Tokugawa Japan that went through Meiji Japan and now even into contemporary society. Why Japanese in a social hierarchical way behave, whether under a corporation, business entity, or even in a community or in a rural area, or even for that matter in educational institutions like university and school. The social hierarchy of Japan, what we witness today, is actually handed down from Tokugawa period. Hierarchical class system, that is classifying the society on the basis of occupation that the individuals pursued. That is, people who were basically engaged with land, that is in the agricultural activities, farmers, what we otherwise call, was one of the class. Samurais, who were actually in the political administration of the nation. Also, they were the military group, that is military disciplined lot in the society. They actually occupy the first position in the hierarchy or ranking of the society. Samurais, then the farmers, then actually come the townspeople, that is artisans and the merchants. These are the ones who actually engage basically in unseen economic activities in producing national wealth besides the farmers. And townspeople, who are called chonin, they are artisans and merchants. Together they came to be known as townspeople, and they were largely responsible for the development of art and culture in Edo area. And it is not suffice to simply say that these were the four classes that existed in Japan. However, women and outcasts were other two segments in the society who need to be introduced to you. Women, when we say, actually they had no equality with that of men, whichever class or caste they belong to. Especially when we speak of caste system, outside of the proper social caste system and hierarchy, there existed outcasts. They were all in the earlier phase of feudal society, they were called etas, because they engaged themselves in very menial activities, carrying of the dead animals and also separating the skin of the animals, and also making some of the some such activities into which some of the upper castes were not ready to engage in. And gradually these are the people who had to follow certain rules. They are not supposed to come in direct contact with rest of the society. They had to live somewhere away from the community of the rest in the society. And these are the people who actually engaged in small activities for their economic survival, and these were not carrying any time status that are equal to other caste or class in the society. Women in particular always were subservient, and one of the ideal women in Japanese society always has to be a good wife, very loyal to husband, and one of the most loyal daughter to a mother or a father, and moreover at the same time being a daughter, being a wife, and is and also women, that's as a mother, daughter, these are, and wife. These are the three status which is written into the fate of Japanese feudal women, and into modern days also it has moved in with not much of a change. However, in contemporary Japan we see women participating in the economic activity in a great way. Genroku period we call, especially from the year 1682 to 1703. This is a period which was characterized by the pursuit of worldly pleasure by the townspeople. As the economic activities expanded, all the assets and wealth produced got better distributed amongst the town people, and also the surplus money they produce or surplus wealth they produce, and also they had certain amount of money which could be spent for pursuing their own pleasure. And here actually in rural Japan there were not much of a activity on which people could spend the money. However, men and middle class men, and actually this provided impetus to the development of art, literature, theatre, painting and other aspects of culture. For example, art and culture in Tokugawa period, literature is one of the most visible, observable component which captures the glimpses of life enjoyed by townspeople. Leading writer of the genre was actually Ihara Saikaku, and haiku is another form of literature which is a short poem, very simple, can be written by anybody, read by anybody, understood by anybody. The smallest form of poetry, that is composed only in 7 syllables, known for expressing the mystical realities of life and nature. Matsuo Basho is this picture that you are witnessing. He was one of the most famous haikuist, if we can call. This is one example of his haiku. The temple bell stops, but I still hear sound coming out of the flowers. Matsobasho 1. And this is everyday life, which is depicted here, especially amidst the nature. And here he writes, every day is a journey, and journey itself is a home. Other forms of theatre were puppet theatre, that's called bunraku, popularized by townspeople. Kabuki is the most prevalent Japanese theatre form even today, which was developed from the early period of Tokugawa. This kabuki, actually leading form of drama in Japan, still enjoyed by people of Japan. Actually in kabuki, to speak little lengthily, is that it is all male theatre. Even all the women characters were played by men only. And we have even today in Tokyo city itself, Imperial Theatre, National Theatre, where kabuki virtually throughout the year have been staged. And there are very, very popular themes which are any number of times repeated. And repeated shows, actually, though it belongs to medieval and feudal period of Japan, today it has imbibed all the technological aspects and one of the most popular form of theatre. And these are some of the characters which you can see on the picture from kabuki theatre. Woodblock printing and painting were also the features. Ukiyo, floating or transient world exemplified cherry blossom. Yugen, profound meaning beyond words. Ukiyo-e, that is paintings and prints representing the transient world. This actually is the Great Wave of Kanagawa by Hokusai. It is most commonly watched picture or photograph in any easily accessible magazine or any form of Japanese expression. This is another painting example of Mount Fuji. We have Tokugawa religion, that is a period of religious stagnation. Not much of a thing were happening except developing ideas, developing philosophy, especially religious philosophy. State of Shinto and state of Buddhism needs to be mentioned here. Buddhism actually entered Japan in between 538 and 552 are the two dates actually ascribed for the entry of Buddhism into Japan. First accepted by the imperial family. Once accepted by imperial family, it became easily acceptable to the rest of the society. Zazen, that is meditation in sitting posture. This Zen is actually a word which has evolved from its origin in the Indian Sanskrit word, that is Dhyan. Via China, it entered into Japan. What we see, Zen form of meditation, it is in the sitting posture, is very widely prevalent even today. This was much better developed during Tokugawa period. Then koan, which is enigmatic Zen sayings. Satori, the sudden enlightenment. This is the picture of Zen masters practicing Zen meditation in one of the Zen temples. In summary, we would like to say that social peace and order that prevailed throughout the Tokugawa period was one of the encouraging factor for development of Japanese culture, cultural forms in the form of literature, in the form of poem, in the form of poetry, in the form of theatre, also in the form of painting and printing. Then social structure as it prevailed was also easy to observe and even develop too. And literature actually developed during Tokugawa period. And women were one of the most prolific writers of poems. Theatre, that is puppet theatre and kabuki, are the two distinct form of theatre of Japan that continues even today. Painting and religious thinking also were developed. However, it is peace and tranquility that prevailed during Tokugawa period that gave rise to development of different cultural forms between 1602 and 1868. it is proper to introduce you to the concept of Tokugawa religion. Religion, when we say religion, actually is a way of life taught by tradition that had prevailed in the society for a very long period. When we say Buddhism, Buddhism entered Japan as scholars dispute the year of entry either as 538 or 552, whatever that be so. When Buddhism as a religion was introduced into Japan, there was already prevailing a native religion, that is Shinto. Shinto is actually not worshipping a god, but worshipping nature in the form of God, or worshipping God in the form of nature, whichever we take it. Actually, Shinto is something like worshipping water, worshipping mountains, worshipping sky, worshipping even sun goddess from the period of Amaterasu. So, we have Shinto existing in different forms, that is visible form, visual form, and at the same time we have today all through Japan dotted with Shinto shrines. But however, when Buddhism was introduced, Shinto and Buddhism did not come into clash like when Christianity entered Japan, whatever that had happened. No, Buddhism was really well integrated into the Japanese society. Only simple reason is that imperial family accepted Buddhism as their religion. Once imperial family accepted, then the courts people accepted. Then the clergy moved into throughout the hierarchy, throughout different classes of Japanese society. And Buddhism today in Japan is of different variety. And the thoughts of Buddhism, philosophy of Buddhism were virtually expanded by Buddhist scholars and monks throughout. Studying religious texts of Buddhism were also one of the most important activity. Actually, Buddhist philosophy was expanded, Buddhist thought were expanded. That's why Buddhism mostly became well accepted. Today, it is one of the inalienable religion of Japan. Number of Buddhist population is such a large, and moreover, it is not one form of Buddhism. Gradually, Buddhism has got into so many denominations. For example, today, if we simply say that there are 242,000 varieties of Buddhism registered in Japan in the Ministry of Education and the Department of Religion. That speaks simply throughout Japan how varieties of Buddhism even in practice exist. However, Buddhism did not disturb Shinto and Shintoism did not disturb Buddhism. That way, Buddhism as an alien religion from the period of introduction through the Tokugawa period, through the Meiji period into present society has its inalienable stamp. However, when we say Meiji period, post-Meiji period, before World War II, it was Shinto which was national religion. That was the time Buddhist followers were persecuted, and Buddhism was not to be practiced either as an institution by the monks or even by the individual Japanese people, because it was state Shinto which was mandatory for every Japanese.